big welcome to you all. This is actually our second kickoff workshop for this Circular Economy Leaders community. We had one yesterday already, taking into account all the different time zones. So we already have been able to adapt our presentations and everything based on our learnings from yesterday. So today, what is today about? You've never really heard of the Circular Economy Leaders community before because it is extraordinarily new. And today is all about introducing this to you to get your feedback on us, to see how it might suit your needs going forward, and most importantly, to see how you can help us shape it going forward. So very quickly from my side, I'm Hannes McNulty, and within GGKP, I lead work on knowledge management and industry. I have with me three colleagues, Cohen, Django, and Valeska. They will each introduce themselves when they give their presentations over the next few minutes. So we won't dwell too much on the whole introduction from our side. What I'd like to do though now is show you the agenda for our workshop today so that you can see what the plan is. So first and foremost, I want to give you a little bit of background to what we're talking about in terms of the Circular Economy Leaders community. Then we'll take a little bit of time to give you an introduction or a background to how we started researching the different initiatives that can become part of this community. We're going to introduce you to the digital tools that will support this community, how we're going to create a nice common language between all of us on the topic of circular economy, and then we will have a discussion. So point 5, in fact, is actually creating a demand-driven community, is all about a discussion between us to get your feedback on how we've explained the community and to get your ideas for how we can go forward. But let me give you a quick background to what this is all about. GGKP is at the moment funded by the EU to support, we have the word here, cross-fertilization of knowledge and experience between different circular economy initiatives, whether they're on a national, regional, or global level. What we mean by that is we want to facilitate peer-to-peer exchange between all of these different initiatives so that experience is flowing across all the work being done around the globe, and to support this exchange with a digital knowledge sharing network. And this is quite important to mention that it's kind of a dual approach. We need to have more experience sharing between initiatives. This is essentially our mandate from the European Commission to support this experience exchange. But we've so much knowledge being produced by the different initiatives. How can we make that more easily available to everybody? How can you be up to date on what other projects and initiatives and organizations are producing on knowledge literally in real time without having to go searching for it, without having to wonder where it is? That's why we talk also about a digital knowledge sharing network. So think about it as knowledge and experience exchange, peer-to-peer based and digital based. And this community is all about that. Now, here is I suppose, a quick explanation of how we think this community can serve your organization. One is, the first thing we're doing with this community is we're actually figuring out who's doing what. This is why we're mapping all of the different circular economy initiatives that are out there. It's a long process. We've just started. We'll give you an introduction to what we've been doing so far. As I mentioned, a big aspect of this community will be how we will support it through digital tools to create this online knowledge network. We will be talking about both artificial intelligence and an API, which is very important to distinguish between the two. They are both very different, and you will get an introduction to how we will apply both these solutions to support the digital knowledge network. To make this work, I mean, we might know who's doing what, we might have loads of digital tools, but it all has to be based on a common language. How do we talk about circular economy knowledge? And that is why there is the project with Switch Asia to develop a circular economy knowledge taxonomy. Again, we'll give you an introduction here, with the outcome that you have this peer-to-peer virtual and in-person exchange. That is ultimately the summary of the Circular Economy Leaders community, bringing all of you together and supporting you through peer-to-peer and digital exchange. Now, I expect you to have loads of questions. I hope you have loads of questions, because it will help us explain things more and understand your specific needs. And like I mentioned, we'll have a big discussion at the end of the few presentations we have ahead of us. But rather than waste too much time, I suggest we do something very important. Is we have here on the screen a Mentimeter question. And we're going to use Mentimeter throughout this discussion as a way to get feedback from you as we go through. We're not going to dwell on it too long. You will see in the chat the link to the Mentimeter coming through any second. And it's a very simple question that you will get through the Mentimeter, is what does knowledge mean to you? Again, it's in the chat, click on it, and you will see the question. I think it would be a good idea, if we can, before the presentations, let's have a quick look at this Mentimeter live. It's a simple question. Hopefully you'll be able to answer in 30 seconds or so, all going well. And we would just like to get a perception of what do you mean by, what does knowledge mean to your circular economy initiative? So having thrown this task at you on the short notice, let's see what kind of responses we get from you straight away. Interesting that we see data here first. Lessons learned, guidelines, best practices, very good. Let's see who else comes out with some information. This again is just really kind of a scene setting question, because knowledge is a broad term and we all understand something slightly different by it. Lessons learned, very good. And what I'm seeing here already is that we have types of knowledge and we have a description of knowledge. Data is a kind of a description of knowledge, where guidelines, good practices, lessons learned are more a type of knowledge, like a knowledge product, like a knowledge outcome. So this is quite interesting actually to see. I see a lot of good practice, best practice, good practice coming out quite a lot. Okay, I'm going to stop already because I just want to get a quick glimpse into how you understand knowledge. We're going to use that result a little bit further down the line. So after having thrown that first task at you, I think what we will do is jump into a short presentation to describe how we have been mapping the initiatives out there on circular economy to build a basis for this new community. So this is just to give you a little taste of the work that has already been done, the work that we'll be continuing to do. And for that, I will pass to my colleague Cohen to give you, or Valeska, apologies, I have too many colleagues around me today. For that, I will pass to Valeska to give a quick summary of what we've been doing on the mapping exercise.
Thank you, Hannes. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining the workshop today. I'm very happy to see you all. I'm Valeska. I'm a consultant at GGKP on sustainable consumption and production and circular economy, and now working on establishing this community of leaders, and of course, provide you with some insight. So basically, just as Hannes mentioned, knowledge is an important aspect of GGKP's work. And therefore, we have conducted research on circular economy initiatives, both through desk research and also through surveys. So basically, in a nutshell, we have over 150 initiatives mapped so far, thanks also to the work of other colleagues within UNEP and also organizations that are already members of the GGKP network. And we have collected 80 responses. Next slide, please. Thank you so much. So basically here you can see in a nutshell the areas of information collected and mapped. So this is an interesting slide in the sense that you can see as a whole, for instance, thematic focus, target audiences, type of implementing organizations. When we look at organizations, this is the core of it, because the knowledge that we have mapped so far is produced by you, basically, by the different key experts and stakeholders that are actually working on circular economy. So now that we hear about best practices, we are collecting the practices, the initiatives, and hopefully get and curate more information along those lines with you and the different stakeholders that we have reached out to. So therefore, this is the basis of information, and that's why it is important because you're the champions and the source of information for the initiatives we have. So next slide, please. I will now pass the floor to Cohen because she will give you an overview of the 84 initiatives where the surveys, from the surveys collected.
Thank you so much, Valeska, and hello everyone. My name is Cohen, and with Hannah, Django, and Valeska, I am also helping out and supporting this project, delivering you the community and different activities. So to jump straight back into the initiatives mapping, we first like to also share with you some analysis that we have gathered based on the initiatives that we have mapped. And here you can see some preliminary analysis based on the survey. And the reason why we're sharing this is because it's a smaller sample size, and it is information provided by the initiatives and organizations themselves. Hence, we have less information gaps. So as Valeska mentioned, we have collected about 84 responses from the initiatives, and they are made up of a lot more public sector organizations, consisting of IOs like UN, NGOs, government entities, and so on. And the remaining 30% are mostly private sector from companies or business associations. And of course, we have some other organizations like academia and civil society making up the rest. And one result here is actually the type of activities we can show you. So they are grouped across 5 different activities that organizations and initiatives mainly deliver. They are awareness building, financing, technical systems, training, and research/knowledge generation. As you can see, a lot of the public sector organizations are heavily involved in awareness building, research knowledge generation, training, technical systems, and visibly less engaged in financing. And the trend is very similar in the private sector organizations as well, small engagement in financing compared to the rest. And this is obviously based on our results, so not an exhaustive result, but so far what we have collected based on the survey. Another interesting result we can share is also the composition of engagement across the circular economy cycle. And we do know that people actually use different terms and framework to actually view the cycle of the circular economy. But this is the graph that we have provided that ranges from the raw materials extraction to materials processing, all the way down to waste management and recycling. And as you can see from this pie chart, a big involvement you can see in the recycling area and also combined with the residual waste management. The waste management portion takes up a lot, followed by consumption and use, production and design. And compared to those, materials extraction area of circular economy is visibly less engaged in. So this is something that you can also remember and compare it with the results that we are going to follow you up with. And for some more updated trends that we'd like to share, I'll pass it back to Valeska.
Thank you, Cohen. So this is basically preliminary, as Cohen mentioned. This is not to say that this is the overall stepping stone result. I mean, this is just the trends that we have seen so far with the initial mapping. But as we move along the lines and working together with you, we will get more insight of the different distribution and also involving different regions because this is also an important aspect. So as we can see here and what we saw in previous charts, the trend still follows in the sense that waste management and recycling is an important sector. Agriculture and food processing, and of course initiatives that aim to cover different sectors. There are also others that are quite important for the circular economy, but that have less presence so far. I mean, maybe that we are not aware of yet, but this is a continuous work that we will be developing as we move along with the community. So next slide, please. So here is just this image just represents how like the the number of initiatives for a specific region, country, and group, right? So for instance, we see that most of the initiatives that we have mapped so far have a global focus. And those countries that you see more prominent on this slide are because there are actually a lot, for instance, initiatives working in Thailand or Laos, Kazakhstan that we have mapped. Nevertheless, this doesn't mean that other countries are not working on the circular economy. Again, this is the process where we will engage with different organizations and also hopefully at the national level to understand what are the actions taken so far.
And so we're back to giving you a little task. As you can see, we've been busy doing mapping. It's an early stage process. We've just started this year, and as I mentioned, it'll be ongoing. But we'd like to use this little opportunity we have now with all of you here to ask you very simply, what are the thematic priorities for your circular economy initiative? Now, there was a question in the chat, what do we mean by circular economy initiative? It's a broad term. It really covers any project, organization that is involved in a circular economy and activity, typically supporting some entity on the ground in some way. You could be doing it through financing, training, policy recommendations, you name it. So it's a very broad term for those organizations actively supporting circular economy uptake through different types of activities. So please join the link again that's in the chat and just list 1, 2, 3 thematic priorities that concern your particular circular economy initiative. They can be anything. It's just to give us, again, a bit of a feel in terms of everybody here today where the priorities lie. So we will give you a moment and let you go in here. Resource recovery, very nice. Policy guidance, metrics, corporate performance, statistics, interesting. Yes, seeing those come up straight away. Capacity building, enabling framework, Africa, yes, very good. Well, I can see lots coming in. Capacity building is coming out strong. Yes, policy, always up there as well. And I see policy guidance elsewhere, so it's a strong focus for a lot of people. I'm just looking at the number of responses and the people. I'll just give it another 30 seconds for your feedback. And I think what you can see here already is circular economy is a very broad topic, and it's logical that we have a wide array of thematic priorities because it covers everything. I mean, we're talking about economy-wide activities. So again, yesterday we saw something similar in the workshop, that there wasn't really just one priority standing out. It was a huge mix of different priorities. And as you can see here now, there are similarities. I'm seeing some kind of sectoral focus here. Waste is coming out in different ways, but capacity building policy, definitely there at the top. And framework, statistics, data, guidelines coming in there as well. Okay, I'm going to call it there. That was an interesting mix. Again, reinforcing the fact that we're dealing with a very, very broad topic on this. And of course, when you have such a broad array of priorities, dealing with this gets very complicated. And like I mentioned, to help us organize the exchange of experience and knowledge between all of the different initiatives, we have in process a number of digital solutions being developed. And one of the reasons we need these digital solutions is how can we very effectively deal with all of the different focuses across all of the different initiatives to make it very easy for people to still exchange. So again, you can see we're dealing with a vast array of different types of information and focuses, and yet we want to get exchange across everywhere. So to explain a little bit how we're going to apply digital tools or solutions, let me pass over to my colleague Django to give a quick introduction.
Thank you very much, Hannes, and good morning and good afternoon, everyone. So my name is Django Calvi, but as Hannes introduced Django, it's much easier for everyone, I think, to remember. I'm a senior knowledge management system expert, and I serve GGKP in this long-standing process of improving the digital knowledge infrastructure to deliver more targeted knowledge products, and in particular in the circular economy context. So what you have in front here is, in fact, the core of the work we are trying to do. We have what we call an API, which is substantially an application program interface. So it's a common layer software that aims at connecting different organizations, different partners, different products. We call them knowledge hubs. These knowledge hubs are indeed you and the organization you represent and the network you represent, because our job is substantially to empower you with systems to deliver your knowledge better and to connect among ourselves better. Now, how do we connect through an application layer interface all these knowledge hubs? If we click and move forward, what we will see is that the API will serve a certain amount of scenarios that are very common in our digital world, like situations like search across multiple databases, or the need of classifying, for example, knowledge products using a curated taxonomy in our specific case for circular economy, or connect relevant experts in different areas. And last but not least, try to use AI, and we will see this in a moment, as a tool not to substitute ourselves in tasks, but as a tool to empower our ability to understand things and eventually develop and deliver better knowledge in the circular economy context. If we move in the next slide, here we really try to put it as much clearer as possible. So AI is not ChatGPT. So the fact that ChatGPT and OpenAI did an amazing job in bringing this to global attention, it's one thing. The fact to assimilate that all the AI ecosystem, machine learning, and the technologies that are related to it are ChatGPT is not the same. In fact, we have been working with a little click. I think we will see, yes, exactly. This is what we mean by ChatGPT, a system, of course, where you can interact by asking questions that can receive also extremely poor answer, versus a system yes, exactly, versus a system that is what we have been implementing also in particular for this circular economy initiative, which is a workflow that uses AI at certain stage to enrich our knowledge base, for example, by generating clusters of similar initiatives, or and at the same time identify gaps that these clusters are not eventually coping with. And we will see this in the next slide to give you a sense, in fact, because this is a iterative process that we just started and that we hope to enrich altogether in the upcoming months. So what you see here are a series of gaps that have been identified by analyzing both the initiatives that have been mapped by Cohen and Valeska. So we have a rich curated knowledge base on one side, and available information on other resources on the web. Altogether, combined, our AI suggested a certain amount of possible gaps to look at. I'll let you here on the screen. You will eventually have the presentation layer, and I will comment only on one of these because it's very interesting to see how it matches the percentage that have been shown initially. So the limited emphasis of making raw materials extraction and processing more circular and sustainable, which indeed represent roughly 7% of the initiatives initially mapped, which indeed is the lowest also percentage in terms of representation. So it would have taken a certain amount of time to extract and compare all this. Thanks to AI, we got an immediate understanding of, let's look into it, let's see if this makes sense, and let's see how we can eventually refine it and provide better action for the future. And I'll pass the floor again to Hannes for our Mentimeter. Thank you very much.
You have passed the floor to me, and I passed the question to everybody here today. We have another little question for you. As you can see, we're throwing a lot of information at you. We're bombarding you with background information, and we're asking you questions at the same time, but it will all make sense as we discuss this together with you. So once again, if you can jump into the chat, you will see the Mentimeter link. It's still there. It's still valid from the last time. Please click on that, and you will be asked that very simple question about who your target audience is. In this case, it is not just put in free text, it's just select from a few options. We've deliberately kept it very simple. And as you can see, you have 5 choices. I will just ask one favor. If you choose other, can you then elaborate what you mean by other in the chat? That would be very much appreciated. But in the meantime, I see that everybody is working either with governments or industry, which is quite interesting. Civil society and financial institutions. Very good. This, I have to admit, is quite similar as well to the result we got yesterday. Either we have just invited people that don't deal with the finance sector, or the finance sector is not getting as much attention as we realized, but we did get a similar result yesterday. Civil society as well is typically low. We've noticed that also from our research that there's not a huge focus on civil society. But again, this can also be because we're just starting our mapping exercise. I mean, there's a huge array that we haven't captured yet. And of course, as the community grows and as we start to deploy more in more detail, I'm sure we will capture more initiatives focusing on the finance and civil society side. Okay, interesting result. I'm glad that nobody clicked other, which is nice. And now you also have a fair idea who's here today and what the focuses are. So rather than take a breath, I will continue to throw yet more information at you. And in fact, it's not me going to do this. This time we are going to talk about the circular economy knowledge taxonomy, which Cohen will introduce. And I just want to mention here as well, and because our colleagues from Switch Asia are also part of the call, the work we're about to describe, we have to give full credit to Switch Asia. They're the ones leading the work on this common circular economy knowledge taxonomy. I want to express my sincere gratitude to them for this. It is a remarkable piece of work that we've started and that they're carrying out. So thank you again, Switch Asia, for that. And over to you, Cohen.
Thank you. So as Hannes mentioned, I know it's a lot of information, but at the same time, I hope we can actually connect all the dots here. So firstly, we provided you with the initiative mapping where we collect initiatives, map them based on different areas of information, and actually provide you with the baseline data of who does what and some insights also from that. And that is now connected with the AI and API tools, which will be put together as more analytical insights generated by AI, also be availed through the API, the digital links where we connect you and us through this link, so we can actually update and automate those information in real time. But then after all those activities that we provide you with, one question that we wanted to answer is, what is the common language that we are going to use here? Because mapping the information, collecting the data, availing them, generating AI insights, we all need to at least be on the same page, using broadly the same terms, tags, etc. So here we bring in taxonomy. And just to clarify, I'm sure we all are aware what taxonomy is, but just to throw out the basic definition, taxonomy is a classification scheme where a content is organized into groups and types, typically using a hierarchical approach. And 2 goals of taxonomy is to, 1, not only just understand the content in a structured manner, but 2, actually navigate and retrieve information from a library or repository that uses a certain structured taxonomy. And here's an example of a taxonomy of beds. And also to help us understand more quickly, the most common taxonomy that we all know would perhaps be the EU taxonomy. And EU taxonomy is a classification scheme, again, that actually describes economic activities and help us actually determine whether they are environmentally sustainable, to help us make investment decisions that goes into those economic activities. And here are the 3 groups that EU taxonomy broadly uses. 1, the list of economic activities. Two, six broad environmental objectives that actually classify and label those activities. And lastly, the human and labor rights standards as well. And what is slightly different with our taxonomy is actually the circular economy knowledge taxonomy that we are actually creating here with Switch Asia. So some people here would know GGKP very well. Some of you would know less and are going to get to know us better. And GGKP's core function is knowledge management, knowledge generation, and knowledge sharing. And we do that through our main knowledge library across three platforms, so policy, industry, and finance platforms. And in providing information to you through those platforms, we would like to streamline that and actually make it more efficient for you to navigate across our knowledge libraries. And we are providing you with a harmonized taxonomy, which will include 4 key groups of information, which are circular economy topics, activities, locations, and target audience. And one important thing to mention here is actually the EU taxonomy and our circular economy knowledge taxonomy won't be mutually exclusive. They will all the more harmonize and work in synergy. And one example I can give you practically is, let's imagine there's an SME who is looking to enhance their environmental performance in their operations. And they'd be able to actually measure and sort of do a bit of a status check through the EU taxonomy. Then based on the information and sort of the check they were able to do through the EU taxonomy, they can then move on to GGKP library, navigate our data and information through our knowledge taxonomy, and actually get action implementation, and guidance in terms of how to best implement the recommendations and guidance that they can acquire from those knowledge. And again, together with Switch Asia, we are hoping to link the taxonomy work with the AI and API tools critically, like Django mentioned before. And so eventually our goals will be to automate the classify, curate, synthesize of the knowledge process, and also connect us and your knowledge hubs, as well as the external data and information through the API digital link. So we can actually update, reflect, and mirror those information in real time. And also going forward, the AI tools that we will be developing and continuously adapting to provide you with more analytical insights will also be trained under this harmonized taxonomy. So we are all on the same page and we'll be providing you information and data under the same common structure. And now it's again the full time. It's a lot, I know it's coming a lot to your way, but I'll pass it back to Hannes to introduce you to the poll number 4.
Thank you very much, Cohen. And at this stage, if anybody has any particular questions that you have on the different presentations, again, we're kind of bombarding you with a bit of information. Please do already throw them into the chat. We're going to be discussing it very soon in a couple of minutes. But no harm to start collecting questions in the chat if you have them. In the meantime, yes, we have another Menti question for you. So jump back into the chat, not just to put in your questions, but also to access the Mentimeter link. Click on it, and you have a question about indicators. So this one is a simple question. Hopefully it's self-explanatory. What indicators do you use to measure progress in your circular economy initiative? As in, how do you measure? I mean, are you doing training and you're measuring the number of people you've trained? Are you working to reduce CO2 emissions and you're talking about tons of CO2? What are the indicators against which you work? It would be very nice to get your feedback on this and to see what comes out. Numbers of actors engaged, numbers of experts, numbers, I suppose, both numbers and types of policies enacted, mutual learning, yes. This is already interesting to see that we're talking about, I suppose, common indicators that we are very used to. It's I won't use the word simplified indicators, but it's easy to follow indicators. It's standard numbers. Material flow analysis. This is where we probably get into more complex types of indicators. Cost savings. Yes, very important. Kilograms of residual waste. There we get into something very specific. Raw materials saved. Again, I suppose what's important about an indicator like this is what type of material, because it could be raw material that is directly extracted from the ground or already processed. It could be in liters, it could be in tons, it could be in grams, depending on what it is. That could also be quite interesting. But we do definitely have numbers of SMEs, number of people, number of policies. That seems to be quite an interesting one here. Would also relate before, if you remember when we had the thematic priorities, capacity building came up a lot, which would also link back to the numbers we're seeing here. Quite interesting to see. And I think this is, it's interesting to see because there's a lot of work that's already been done on circular economy indicators. I mean, it's not that we're out there without a clue of what to do, but because circular economy is so broad, because it deals with so many different thematic areas, you also have levels of indicators. Do we talk about indicators on a country level? Do we talk about indicators on a sectorial level? Do we talk about indicators on an SME level, whatever it may be? You have so many different levels that are quite important. And one thing we need to really maybe keep in mind is how do the different levels of indicators speak to each other? So that if we collect information, again, for a number of experts trained to support SMEs, implement resource efficiency, they in turn save X amount of energy. This in turn leads to X numbers of tons of CO2 saved, which leads to a country level result. How do we make sure we keep that linkage between them? That could be a quite interesting point to discuss. But I think everybody has responded to the Mentimeter. I hope it's been interesting for you as well. And with that, with loads of time left to us, fortunately, we are at the discussion stage. And what that means is we want to see loads of hands appear on the screen saying, I have a question. I don't understand anything that you said. Can you explain more? So we anticipate this and we hope that that's the case. And we would also then eventually like to hear what you want to get out of this community. Do you have suggestions on how we can already go forward with this, how it can benefit you, how you'd like to be engaged? So let me take a breath and see who wants to raise their hand first. If nobody raises a hand, I know loads of you, and I will just point a finger and say, ask me a question. So I see Anna just switched on her camera. I'm taking that as an indication that you'd love to pose a question.
Hi, hello. Hi, everyone. I have a question, but I think with my question, I'll also expose myself to admit I was maybe 5 minutes late. So my question is, because I was slightly late to join, so far, like I think everything you and the team has shown hands is very interesting. Many times when ITC is implementing our coaching components around circularity, the information you shared is exactly what, in many circumstances, we want to be able to find. We want to be able to navigate the ecosystem. We want to be able to know who is doing what, so we can think of leveraging synergies. So I think my question is, thinking that I lost the 5 initial minutes. So I understand this is a new initiative led by GGKP. And perhaps on the format of the initiative, if you can just maybe repeat yourself in case you have mentioned already at the beginning, how it will take place, and looking specifically, as I saw in your research, the results, there were some actors at the local level, at the country level, how also this initiative will help to bridge maybe the gap of the knowledge gap that exists also between maybe global initiatives, local initiatives, regional initiatives. Yeah, that's the first question. Thank you.
No, it's a good question, Anna, and I think it's worthwhile for everybody to come back to the basics on this. So the big purpose, let me come back to why we're doing this actually, because we have received specific funding from the European Commission to enhance knowledge and experience sharing between circular economy initiatives. Essentially, what's happening is that there is a huge amount of work ongoing on circular economy initiatives, national, regional, global level. But it's very siloed. You'll have a project very focused on its work, doing its work, and not necessarily one understanding who else is doing similar work, whether on regardless what level, who to reach out to, etc. So our job really here is to bring these different, let me say, siloed projects, organizations closer together so that they can more easily see who's doing what information are they producing, what have they learned, what lessons have they encountered, what challenges have they overcome. So this community has a focus to enable peer-to-peer exchange between organizations to share experience, but also to provide a very simple, digitally supported knowledge network. How can we connect all the different knowledge sources together so that you have simplified access to any initiative's knowledge that they're producing essentially in real time? So a digital support structure for knowledge exchange and a peer-to-peer support structure for people to share experience with each other. That's what this community is essentially about and the format we will take. So think workshops, virtual and in-person for experience sharing, also a community of practice platform, but also then in the background, a digital network that will support all of you, in essence. And the idea is that if we can put that all in place, then you will have also a very simplified approach between national, global, regional level knowledge exchange. The idea is we pull all of that knowledge together from all of those different initiatives, regardless what level they're on. So if you're at a global level, you see what's happening on a national level. On a national level, you will be able to see what's happening in other countries on another global level and see what's relevant to you. I hope that gives some context. And I see one hand already up to raise.
Andrew also.
Oh, Andrew as well. Who was first? Let me see. I have to admit, okay, Andrew was first. I see him on the list first. So bear with me and we'll move to Andrew first.
Yeah, thanks, Hannes, and all your colleagues for these presentations. And maybe you'll cover it later a little bit, but I just very interested in explanation how this community will technically work, because we have the same, as you remember, on this knowledge event on circular economy in Ukraine on June 6th, we had a request from the audience that we need to form some national community on knowledge, circular knowledge production and exchange, and really collected the number of the people and their contacts, the people who really want to be a part of this national network. It's not finance, it's just self-organizing, but my question is how to do it instrumentally, like what is options to create this community and maybe keep it informed and active with minimum efforts, and how it will be arranged into the frame of this project. As I think you partially actually answered this question in your speech before, but still.
No, I think look, Andrew, it's very important. How will it practically work? Because communities are everywhere. And quite frankly, also within GGKP, we have different communities on different topics. And it's always a challenge to keep these active and engaged. Very importantly here is this community is going to be backed up by a digital infrastructure, which I think is quite unique and different. What we mean by that is over the coming, and we're at the beginning of a process. Over the coming 12 months, we will essentially be reaching out to each and every one of you, asking you, would you like to connect your online platform to GGKP's global library? Would you like to be part of a digital network? That will put you that will digitally connect you to us, but also the other initiatives. So you'll be part of an automated digital network where your knowledge, with your permission, can be shared easily with everybody else and you will have access to it. So it's a digitally connected community that will be the kind of the foundation to this, okay? Obviously, that's not enough. We need to have the peer-to-peer exchange as well. And this will be more traditional. One of the things we will do is we will have a regular quarterly workshop between the full community on an ongoing basis. We will also, knowing that circular economy is so broad, everybody has a different priority. Within the next roughly 6 months, we will start to identify, should we focus on specific topics and create, if I can call it that, mini working groups where a separate workshop might be held on a very specific project. SMEs, policy in a given region, whatever it may be, should we then, if there's enough people interested in a specific topic, create that as a side activity within this community. Then we also have our Green Forum platform, which is again, it's a digital platform to support any type of community, and it will also support this. For those of you that don't know the Green Forum, it is essentially like LinkedIn. It's a copy and paste of LinkedIn. We just made it work better and more effectively for communities of practice in the green environment. And this will be our way to post information to each other, to be able to share comments, etc. And we're also developing an app for this platform that will be available within the next, let me say, 6 to 12 months. So we will have, again, for this peer-to-peer exchange, a digital platform to support this. Now, so you see a mix. There will be the knowledge digital network that would provide a strong foundation. Whether you want to exchange with others on an experience level, you can always be part of that digital network. We will have the classic workshops with topical workshops as well. And we will have, over time, a more dynamic presence on the Green Forum as the community builds up. Now, one other thing that we want to do is we realize the limits of virtual workshops. We will also be looking to see at the larger in-person conferences and events that happen throughout the year, how many of you might be attending those? Typically, World Circular Economy Forum. You all know many of you take place there. What we will be trying to do at some of these key events is also having in-person workshops with those of you that are there in attendance. We want to start taking advantage of when people are participating in person, how can we create some parallel sessions? It will mean that there will be smaller groups coming together in person, but we want to also take advantage of that. We feel there should be an in-person element to this community as well. It might be a bit on the ad hoc side. It might be only restricted to a small number, but it would be advantageous to avail of that as well. Now, what we will do is we will be sharing after this workshop a little summary of the approach going forward, the technicalities of how it's going to work. Think of the next 6 months as really putting this community into real practice. And again, your feedback is going to be very important. So I hope that clarifies. Thank you for the question, Andre, because I think everybody would have had that in their mind. Therese, thank you for being patient.
Thank you very much. I'm Therese. I work at UNEP and I have an environmental data background. The initiative is very ambitious. It requires some advanced infrastructure. And the idea is that we at UNEP headquarters, for example, we receive a lot of requests from developing countries that do not have advanced infrastructure first. Second, they are not advanced from the digital perspective. So and this initiative is all about linking all of the initiatives together. So I have 2 questions. How will the limitations in terms of digital and infrastructure availability in developing countries would be considered? And the second question is more about having this platform built on the basis of AI. So as well, same concept that there are an exponential number of initiatives available. Not all of them are online and not all of them are advertised. So mapping of the initiatives by AI or by having them digitally available is something very promising, but it doesn't incorporate all of the initiatives that are being undertaken worldwide. So how will that aspect be considered? Thanks a lot. And sorry for the hard questions.
No, they're good questions and allows us to explain a lot. Let me actually come back to your question about the level of digitalization in developing countries and how that can have an impact. Firstly, what we're doing is we're supporting initiatives. How can we empower existing initiatives, maybe also new initiatives, with more knowledge, more lessons learned, so that they can work with their target audience more efficiently? Already that means that we're not trying to reach all the SMEs, the civil society with digital impact. We're working towards empowering initiatives to get to those target audience with whatever means they normally do. So again, we know that there are so many people that would have difficulty accessing this on a digital side. Related to that, you said, yes, there are a number of initiatives that don't have an online presence, that are out there doing work and really don't have a knowledge library, etc. One of the things that we also do as GGKP is we provide initiatives that don't have an online presence or only a small one with an online presence. Our knowledge management infrastructure is designed to provide an online presence to those that don't have it or don't have the resources to do it. So if we find an initiative, or if it's been recommended to us, for example, by UNEP or any other organization saying there's this great project happening on the ground, they have a small website, but they don't have a knowledge library, and yet they'd like to be part of all this, we can actually give them that online presence for them that would give them a knowledge library infrastructure to support them with this digital infrastructure going forward. So that's quite important, is that it's not a case of we wouldn't be able to work with them. We would actually be able to empower them digitally so that they can get involved in all of this. And then it is ambitious what we're trying to do. And of course, what is actually happening and how are we going to incorporate AI? The good news is we're in the process of actually physically developing all of this. AI, API, the two things that Django mentioned, are actually currently under development within GGKP. We aim that by the end of this year, we will already have a simplified version of this API. What we mean by API, again, is a digital link to other knowledge libraries. We will be able to test out with any initiative, one of your initiatives, if you have a library, how can we create an automated link between your library and our library roughly by the end of this year. In parallel, we're also implementing this AI aspect, which will deal with the knowledge that we get in from your initiative through this API connection. So API is the connection, AI is the analysis, the classification, the manipulation of the knowledge. And these two will be in place through GGKP, and again, in a kind of a trial version by the end of this year, which means is we'll be able to, during 2025, more than likely the latter half of 2025, be able to actually deploy this en masse to your different initiatives. And again, this is not taking a ChatGPT approach. This is actually using a number of different AI tools, connecting them together in one system, incorporating it into the GGKP knowledge management infrastructure, and putting it to work. So you'll see this in stages, a trial basis by the end of this year, and we call it a full-on deployment, let's say mid-25 with all of your initiatives. So it's ambitious, but it's underway and already in progress, which is the exciting part of all of this.
And also, if I may, Therese also asked a question on the fact that not all initiatives and information are online, and I think that is a very good point. And that is precisely why we actually couple our research with surveys, so we can actually directly collect information from you. So as much as we can actually reach, we would like to actually reach out to you personally and actually ask you those questions, because far more than what's available online, the information that is provided by you and your initiatives yourselves are way more accurate, way more up to date, and also it comes with all the more details and numbers. But then at the same time, we do know that our contacts and our reach can be limiting, and that's why precisely we go back to the Green Forum, where it's an online space, it's a community, and we would actually like to ask you to all join, ask your colleagues to join, and actually ask your end users to also join. Green Forum is a place where anyone can actually join, whether it's an SME or a financial institution or just an individual interested in a topic and it's an expertise on the topical area. So together, all of these groups can actually come together on this online space where we can actually collect also information, and it will also enable the personal communication function as well going forward. I mean, it's already there, but we're also strengthening and developing the function as well. So hopefully those two additional information can fill in the gap that doesn't quite fulfilled by the information available online.
Thank you, Koen. And if I may, I'm just going to add one other piece of information on the AI aspect, which is our colleagues in the Global Green Growth Institute are also very actively working on AI. And we're actually collaborating a lot with them on building up all of these different AI solutions. So it's not really just GGKP going on this on its own. We're really making sure we collaborate as much as possible with our close colleagues within the GGKP group. You can see all the different logos in the back to really make this work. So I should point out that there's a strong collaborative effort, especially with GGGI at the moment, on delivering these different AI solutions. So just to highlight, going forward, you'll probably see GGI a lot more in this community and hopefully taking quite an active role in helping us roll it out. Django, you wanted to come in also with a comment.
Yes, thank you very much. I will be very quick. It is a short follow-up on Therese's concern indeed for the digital divide, which is something that we are aware and we took into consideration, and that's why the approach is the one of the developing an API. So an application program interface, it is the lowest bandwidth consumption mechanism that we can technically deploy in order to connect different systems. So from an IT perspective, it is a way to then provide a platform that is the lowest bandwidth consumption, and that can be adapted to different situations. So that's also part of the technical work that there is behind.
Thank you, Django. Now, I'm presuming there's loads more that would like to ask complicated questions, which I will anticipate. But in the meantime, I'm not going to do a Mentimeter, but I am going to ask a straightforward question because we propose lots of things. Would you and your organization be interested once we have our AI API? You'll now know going forward, not just talking about AI, we're also talking about API. Once we have this infrastructure in place, as I mentioned, as a trial basis by the end of this year and full-on deployment by mid-next year, would you like to be part of this network? Would you like us to work with your organization to put in place this digital link between your library and our library? For that, I would just ask, raise your hands. Anybody who raises their hand right now, we would like to see, we will keep you in mind. We will make sure that as we test this out in the future, we will keep you in mind. So raise your hand if you think it would be interesting for your organization to be part of this digital network, taking part over the next 12 months. So far I see 4 hands. I'm presuming there's a few more. 5 hands, 9 hands, 10. Great, loads of interest, loads of interest. Do we have more? Yes, it will keep going up. This is very good. Yes, thank you very much. Nice to see. This is important for us because we're proposing things that we have no idea if it's of real benefit or of real interest to you. So quick feedback on this one is very nice. Okay, that's a very good start. Now, can I ask all of you to take down your hands? Because we're going to now, yes, everybody has their hands taken down. Very good. Next of all, in terms of feedback on how we should go forward with this community, we have mentioned a couple of ways how we'd like to work with you on a peer-to-peer basis. For example, with the workshops, the in-person, but there's other ways we could exchange with you. And I hope I'm not putting Koen too much on the spot, but we do actually then have a Mentimeter for you. We would like to ask you the question of how you would prefer to engage with this community. And we don't mean just with GGKP, but between the different initiatives. Again, the idea is we need we essentially need, and we really need to do it, to improve exchange of experience, in particular experience between initiatives. So what format would you like this exchange to take place, other than, of course, what we've been proposing? Now, Cohen is frantically typing to get this already on the Mentimeter.
It's already there. The link is there.
So very good. So the link is in the chat, I believe. Yes, it is. If you can go click on that Mentimeter, we will ask for your input on ways on how you would like to exchange with us. So here we go. Now here, the important thing is other. We've obviously proposed something, but we would like to hear the other ideas. So feel free to take other. We would just then ask you to expand within the chat. Okay, there's quite an even split here: workshops, community practice, expert working groups, in-person events. In-person events and thematic workshops seem to be the winners. Again, other ideas, click other and type it into the chat. Really interested to get new ideas. So we have one person who has clicked other. That one person, please explain what you mean by other in the chat. It would be great. Very good. Interestingly, it seems that everybody is interested in everything, which is also good, but we don't have new ideas. And just to explain the difference, what we mean between periodic thematic workshops and expert working groups. The periodic thematic workshops would be open discussions. Expert working groups is when we identify a particular problem that we need to maybe develop new knowledge around, new training around, new policy, etc., that we actually get to work on that. So again, those that clicked other, please just type it into the chat so that we can see what you mean. Okay, very good. So I think for sure, I'm glad to see the interest in the in-person. This is something we really want to pursue. We know that it's very expensive to create specific in-person events, but there's so many in-person large events happening on a regular basis that we can piggyback on and take advantage of, which is quite important. Yes, a curated WhatsApp group. This is a very important question. The Green Forum that we have already, which is an online community space, and we will be sending you information to learn more about it, will have an application within the next 6 to 12 months. This application will allow for group chats, etc., within the community. Whilst the WhatsApp group is a very good idea, a lot of people use it, it gets complicated to curate on a regular basis, which is why we're quite keen to deploy this Green Forum application, which will allow simplified exchange, chats, comments, posting, etc. So we're hopeful that the application will never take the place fully of WhatsApp, but that will allow for a number of those, let's say, functions that WhatsApp do. Very good. Okay, thank you for the Mentimeter. Good to get your feedback. At this stage, I would love to get another couple of questions. Anybody else want to come in with a query on this community? I will actually give a few next steps towards the end of this, but because we have a few more minutes we have here, knowing lots of you here, will reach out to some of you directly to give some insights. If nobody puts up their hands, and I'm not seeing any particular hands, what I do actually would like to do then is Switch Asia is present here today. And maybe what I will do is not point the finger directly, but see if anybody from Switch Asia would like to jump in and give maybe a quick insight to the work they're doing on the knowledge taxonomy that we're working on. Let me see. Sorry, because I'm actually looking at the participant list as I look at the screen as well. And let me see. Sarah, are you there? No. Sorry, I have to apologize because Sarah from Switch Asia had been there before and unfortunately is not there anymore. So I cannot point the finger at her, unfortunately. Let me see. Lee Hender from the South African Cleaner Production Center. I know that I'm always picking on you for some input, but what I'd like to do is, Lee, is to ask you a question. How, because there's a lot happening on national cleaner production centers. There's a lot of interest from different countries establishing new cleaner production centers. Do you see an opportunity for an existing or a new national cleaner production center to avail of this community, maybe in particular from this digital knowledge network? Would you allow me to turn to you with that question to see if you can give your input, your insights in how NCPCs, existing or new, could benefit from this community? And if for whatever reason Lee doesn't want to jump in, I have Andre to turn to if that's possible as well.
Thank you, Hannes. Now I can definitely quickly speak on it, but I'm happy for Andre to also add his perspectives to it. Well, I think with the rapid development of knowledge management tools, AI, as well as just the new amount of data that has to be processed on a daily basis, there's definitely an opportunity for current NCPCs, but also new NCPCs to take advantage of all of the different advancements that has taken place in data collection, in engaging with industry, in sharing information, but also analytics. And I think this is something that we have over the past few months been, as NCPC South Africa, been working on quite tirelessly around keeping up to speed or keeping up to date with the amount of data and information that we have to process across all of the different projects that we're working on, but also trying to find the interlinkages and the analysis that actually helps us and informs us to save time, to save resources, financial resources, human resources, and by understanding, by analyzing the data that we have and that we get from our reports and from our interactions with industry, and also the needs that industry communicates to us, and of course against the backdrop of policy changes or policy requirements. So with that being said, a new type of NCPC or new NCPCs that get established would definitely benefit from applying those advancements from the start. I think what we've learned over the past 15 to 20 years can definitely be packaged and used to design standard operating procedures and processes that new NCPCs can immediately apply to tap into the current pace of how industry is evolving, and how the different climate change and climate resilience approaches has evolved. So yeah, I think there's this initiative and the approach to this to circular economy is definitely something that will add a lot of value to take what we're already doing to the next level. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lee. And I think it's great. And I really want to reiterate, there's a big movement happening again amongst NCPCs, the need for NCPCs to learn from each other and especially support the new ones coming up. I'd say Andre would also like to comment on this, but before I pass to you, Andre, I do want to mention one thing, because Lee, you said it here a few times, the word data. And I actually haven't mentioned that yet. And I do want to mention it very quickly here. Knowledge, we often see as a knowledge product or a knowledge solution, a training program, a policy recommendation, a case study. Every knowledge product is based on data. You know, we do research, we bring together data and information to create a knowledge product. this data is crucial to also collate and compare. We shouldn't just be bringing together the end product, we should also be bringing this to the data together. And GGKP is also keeping an eye on this. How can we also consolidate the data behind all of the different knowledge products and resources? So keep that in mind as well, that this community will also eventually be pulling together as much as possible the data so that we can analyze what has gone into the knowledge products as well. But Andre, would you like to take a minute to add to the NCPC side? I'm always happy to draw attention to the work of the NCPCs.
Yes, thanks. And yeah, from our side, from National Criminal Production Center in Ukraine, I have a vision, and I think it's relevant for all NCPCs in the world that now we are naturally transferring from criminal production to circular economy, to something bigger and something maybe more interesting even for companies right now. And speaking about this, we see that there is a big demand on knowledge, on national knowledge. And also, for example, in Ukraine, we have this demand on coordination of knowledge creation and coordination of these efforts, because a lot of players, and I think it's the same for all the world, for globally, because circular economy is something new, and it means that it's quick growth from different points, and the same in Ukraine, different schools, different people trying to do, universities, NGOs trying to bring up circular economy on a table, and sometimes it's very different approaches. So we need some standardization maybe to make it smoother earlier for everybody, and we need some coordination. So not only exchange our knowledge, and it's also very, very important. The problem maybe is that, of course, we didn't speak about global exchange. A lot of knowledge is in national languages. And for example, we provided a lot of guidelines on resource efficiency for industry, but it's there in Ukrainian. And for sure, we want to share them with globally and want to sustain this knowledge somewhere. And because cleanup production centers not also not are not lived forever, so we want to have this information somewhere just to sustain it. But the thing is, for circular economy, there is a lot of different distorted knowledge and different approach even right now, and it's very important to have this community to exchange this maybe attitudes and how to create it, and then to do it globally and also national level. That's what we want to do, and I really want to replicate this knowledge, like global knowledge, maybe something smaller for Ukraine, because for now we have this list of universities, list of people, enthusiasts and leaders who want to be part of this network and really want to coordinate efforts in preparing knowledge on circular economy.
Thank you, Andre. And one thing I want to take from you here is how we're moving from greener production to circular economy. The topic has got much bigger, it's got more complex. We're demanding a lot more of everybody, including the end user. And I think it's an important point to make that as we make this move, you also said something else, distortion of knowledge, of information. What is right? What is wrong? There's so many different perspectives on the circular economy, on the different topics. How can we align ourselves? And I want to reiterate that the circular economy knowledge taxonomy is a big aspect of this. How can we create a baseline that we at least speak the same way about circular economy knowledge? And then we can actually focus in, avoid duplication, make sure we're doing it in a similar format, and it's more easily replicable from a global to a national level. On that, I do want to say this circular economy knowledge taxonomy is not something that GGKP is creating with Switch Asia just for us. It's for everybody. It's a common circular economy knowledge taxonomy. And most importantly, we want to get your feedback on this. So here I move to the next steps because we're already 1 minute over time. And this will actually be the very first thing we want to work on with you. But probably by the end of this summer, we will be following up with you on the first draft version of the circular economy knowledge taxonomy, again, being developed by Switch Asia. So full credit to them on this one. And we will be looking for your feedback. We want to hear what you think of this. Is it a good taxonomy? Does it include all the elements that concern your initiative when it comes to circular economy? We anticipate a lot of feedback. We anticipate a lot of queries. We anticipate a lot of changes. So this will be the first thing we want to work on with you, is to get this feedback. Following that, we will have another workshop in autumn that will be focused primarily on this circular economy knowledge taxonomy. It'll be a discussion around what we've achieved so far, your feedback, the direction it's going, how we can apply it, etc. So that will be the next workshop that we organize with everybody. After this, once we deal with the circular economy knowledge taxonomy, we will move into regular quarterly workshops between all of us. This will either start by the end of this year or the beginning of 2025. And within the first 2 quarterly workshops, we want to identify, do we need to have separate thematic, topical, expert type working groups as well, or do we just keep with the quarterly working groups at the same time? Now, because we're dealing with the knowledge taxonomy first, that also means at the beginning of 2025, like I mentioned, we will be also reaching out to all of you, especially those that raise their hand, to start to see how we can connect your knowledge library to ours and others in this digital network. So there's a lot of practical steps ahead of us. This community, we want to build a foundation to before we start promising loads of amazing engagement and exchange. Let's build a strong foundation to it. That's why we have the knowledge taxonomy. That's why we have these API digital links. And then we start getting into a regular process. So this is what lies ahead of us in the next 6 months or so. To this, we obviously want to increase the numbers taking part in this community as we go along. And we would like to hear from you if you have recommendations of initiatives we should consider for inclusion in this community. Like Therese mentioned, these can be initiatives that are not online, they're small, they're national. Any suggestions you have will be gratefully received. Our mapping exercise is an ongoing exercise that is collecting as we go forward and slowly but surely building up this community of initiatives. So please share as well your recommendations. And with that, we've come to the end of our workshop. I want to thank you all very much for your participation. It is the very, very first conversation we've had with you on this. We've got 6 months of foundation building ahead of us. But then the walls of this community house will start to rise and keep going until we conquer the world with perfect knowledge exchange and experience exchange. So thank you again very much. I wish you a lovely summer. You will be receiving a summary very soon of this workshop, the next steps, but you will obviously then be hearing from us by the end of the summer on the taxonomy and the follow-on workshop. Thank you all very much. Wishing you a nice rest of the day, a great summer. All the very best.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you. Bye.